I'm David Ward.
And spell it W.
W-A-R-D.
Okay, it's for some future guy who digs it up and says, what did he say? I'm not quite sure. Okay,
Sure.
okay. And what's your proper title now is interim, or is it post-interim?
It's interim chancellor until June 1st
Okay.
of 2009.
Very good. Now, I'd like you to think back about your coming to UW-Green Bay, and maybe we should rehearse that a little bit.
Sure.
How did you first come to get involved with the university? What year?
Well, if you really want to go back, I actually attended my first 2 years of college at the forerunner to this campus. It was a 2-year campus in the city of Green Bay. I was from Green Bay. And so for the first 2 years I went to the 2-year campus, which was on the east side of Green Bay. And in the second year that I attended, it moved into a new building, which was the Deckner building. And the Deckner building was one of the early buildings used by UWGB in 1968 and 69 to house faculty and hold classes.
Okay, well, where was the prior building?
Prior building was right next to what was called City Stadium, and it was a Quonset hut. This would be approximately 500 yards north of East High School on Baird Street.
All right, there's an FFA building now to the north of the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the location, or is it between the school and the stadium?
It's right on Baird. It was right on Baird Street.
Okay.
Went down Baird Street and turned right in, and it was on the south, what you would call the south bank of the East River.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. Then I was off to Madison for undergraduate and graduate degrees. In 1968, I started looking for a teaching job, and my field was finance. I knew there was a new university to open up in my old hometown, so I contacted Roland Posey, who was the Dean of Professional Studies. I did an interview in, I think it was either late fall or early winter of 68, 69. After that, I mean, they wanted to hire me, but we couldn't agree on how much on the salary, and eventually we did.
Were you a good negotiator?
I don't know, but I guess maybe.
Okay, now did you have your PhD, or were you at a master's level? Or?
I was master's level, plus I passed my prelims, so I was, as they call it, ABD, all but dissertation. And I came here needing to complete my degree, and I started teaching in the fall of 1969, which I mark, and I think most people mark, as the official opening of UW-Green Bay. So started teaching there, and then taught here for 7 years before I left for UW-Oshkosh.
Now, did you grow up in Green Bay?
I grew up in Green Bay on the west side.
Okay, and you went to high school?
High school was Green Bay West High School, right.
Okay, so you have a real sense of the community that a lot of people don't.
I was one of the few natives. There were some others. Jack Frisch was here. He was a Green Bay guy. There were a few others, but I actually was born and raised here.
Okay. Now, there are two ways I have started to look at this as writing this article, and one is to look at it from the perspective of the University of Wisconsin and what they wanted to accomplish, what they expected, and the other was what the community wanted and expected. And of course, they're going to be different just because they're different entities. In terms of the community, the record that I found, written record, is that somewhere in 1958, after Gaylord Nelson became governor, he mentioned this possibility of a university. Is that the earliest record you know that it was mentioned as a Northeastern Wisconsin University? He didn't mention specifically Green Bay.
I don't know of anything before that.
Okay.
I think at the time that he was talking about it in the 50s, going to college was unusual in this region. We didn't have a very high go-to-college rate, and I think aggregately in the country maybe 10 to 15% of high school graduates went on to college. So we hadn't seen the great burst in enrollments that followed with Mark. The thing that really triggered it all was the Russians launching a satellite called Sputnik. And suddenly we needed engineers. And so tons of people went toward the university, somewhat as I did, thinking they were going to be engineers, got there, found out that wasn't for them, and then they branched out into other areas. And we went through the record enrollment period of the 60s. Part of that was due to Sputnik, part of it was due to a vastly growing need for teachers. And so teacher education drove a lot of the campuses, particularly those that were in what was then called the Wisconsin State University system.
Right. Well, I'm glad you put it on this sort of a social context, because this is how I'm trying to see where it fit for the University of Wisconsin and for the state of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. What did they see as the needs to create this? In '65, of course, there were documents signed, mm-hmm. and the whole idea of a university with an environmental mission, or man in the environment mission, came about. So how did that arise? Was it related to competition with the Russians, technology, population?
Well, I think the secret of all of this that I've never seen written is that it really arose out of competition between two university systems. The University of Wisconsin had campuses at Madison and Milwaukee. The state university system had 9 campuses spread around the state. All of them were former teachers' colleges. From Superior in the north to Whitewater in the southeast, from Platteville in the southwest to Oshkosh in the northeast. And there was a great competition for budget in the legislature. And I believe, if you went back and looked, you might find written the notion that the University of Wisconsin system felt it was getting outflanked, and so its response was to establish 2 new campuses in the largest population areas, which would have been Green Bay and then Kenosha-Racine. I'm not sure anybody started out to create an environmental campus in Green Bay. I think that came with the chancellor. I think the chancellor, Ed Widener, shaped a lot of that. I think the local expectation wasn't at all program specific. It was, we want a 4-year university here. And I think that they saw it as meeting regional needs, particularly in business. This was a big manufacturing area, still is. Lots of other businesses here. Need for teachers, need for professionals of various kinds. So I think when it first started, the community saw it as a university kind of in a generic way. I think the UW-Madison people saw it as putting their stake in the ground in 2 important areas. Now, all of that pretty much got thrown into a kettle when the merger occurred in 1971. When they opened this campus in '69, the idea that we would merge all of the universities into one system was about as far away as California. That nobody thought could be done.